Hello everybody, Bear Trackers Animal Tracks Den here, standing underneath a black oak, and the interesting thing here is feeding signs. So who feeds on oaks? Guess maybe a better question would be who doesn't feed on oaks. Look at this. Now I did not arrange these here. These were found just like this. I didn't touch any of this. And what you're looking at is the tops or the caps of the acorns from the black oak, Quercus collegii, and they've all been opened. And you also see some acorn shells in here that have been opened as well. Another thing that I noticed around here is that there are branches on the ground underneath this tree. And I'm going to pull a couple in here so you can see them. Now this is a healthy oak tree. These leaves are still green. There's no real reason why these would have fallen off the tree. So how did these get here? Let's look a little closer. So out here, this is sort of below the edge of the crown of the tree, in the middle of this dirt road. There are also a couple of these cut branches. And I say cut because they have indeed been cut off the tree. So the culprit that does this cutting of branches from trees is this animal right here. This is a different animal. There are the tracks of two animals here. So first one is this large squirrel track, and these are the paired hind tracks. Here is a front track. Here is a different animal. That's the striped skunk. So the striped skunk did not cut the acorns off the tree because they can't climb. They have long claws on their front feet, and those long claws do not allow them to climb, but they do allow the striped skunk to dig. In the case of the squirrel, they have sharp, curved claws that enable them to climb. So they climb, and what they do is they bring things down to the ground to feed upon. Here's some more tracks. So right here you're looking at a striped skunk hind track headed that direction, and the squirrel headed this direction. If I back up the camera, you can see all four tracks. This is the right front, left hind, right hind. So the hind tracks, these two, have 5 toes. So you've got the inner toe, toe 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, on both of these hind tracks. And in typical rodent fashion, the 2 outer toes face outward, and the 3 middle ones group together facing forward. Your front track has 4 toes, and they all face relatively forward, but the 2 on the outside face kind of at a 45-degree angle or so. So that's your western gray squirrel tracks. Now let's look at these branches in real close detail. So what we're looking at here is the tip of the branch, or, well, what is the tip of the branch now? This branch was cut off the tree, and it was done by the squirrel using its teeth, its incisors. And the incisor teeth of squirrels are extremely sharp, and they are ever growing, so they grow all throughout the life of the animal. And squirrels are rodents, so they have really good gnawing teeth. They use those teeth to gnaw these branches off the trees. Why do they do that? Because they want to get some of the acorns on the ground where they can feed upon them. But if you look in this cut mark here, you can see striations, you can see the little lines that were left. This is the pattern left by the teeth of the squirrel. And I'll show you an acorn in a moment where you can also see this pattern. But this is how you can tell the squirrel gnawed this branch off the tree. Let's look at the other one, and you can see a similar pattern. In this case, there's sort of a stair-step pattern, which is also very characteristic of rodent gnawing. And it's very small. This is not the size of something big like a porcupine. This is the size of something small, like a western gray squirrel. And you can really see in there the incisor marks in this. And this branch was knocked down to the ground because it had acorns on it, and the squirrel wanted to reach those acorns. So what happens in a tree is on the tips of the branches, that's where a lot of the acorns are, but the tips of those branches are flimsy and thin, and they will not support the weight of a squirrel. However, the bigger branches will. So the bigger branches become a highway. The animal will come out the bigger branch, and it will get close to the tips of another branch and reach out, grab it, and gnaw it off, and then drop it to the ground, because it can't climb out physically on the tips of these branches because they won't hold its weight. So they end up dropping them to the ground, and they do this with other species of trees too. I was looking at some Pacific wax myrtle today, and they're doing the same thing to get to the berries. But they use the larger branches as a highway. They end up out at the ends of the branches where they can reach the tips of these trees and gnaw the branches off, drop them to the ground, and get the acorn. So here is the nut of an acorn, and for whatever reason the squirrel did not finish consuming this one. Took a couple of bites out of it, and right here you can see incisor marks, those paired grooves in it from the teeth of the squirrel. So it literally took this out of the shell and started to feed upon it, and then abandoned it for whatever reason. It could be that it got disturbed by a bird, or maybe a hawk flew over and scared it off, or it could have been me coming home. I could have scared it when I drove home, but look at the grooves here in the acorn. Right here there's a big groove, there's grooves here. They're paired, and that's because they are using their paired front teeth, which are the incisors, and they're using those to feed upon these acorn meats. So that's about the size of a gray squirrel's tooth marks right there. Okay, now the camera's focused a little bit better, and you can see how it looks kind of like a stair-step pattern there. And what that is the squirrel uses the edge of the incisors because they can't bite straight forward because the nose is in the way. So they have to bite from the side, and so their teeth come in from the side, and so the edge of the incisors make these marks. And it also comes out in this sort of 45-degree pattern. Oops. Okay, the camera won't focus. There it goes. Anyway, kind of flat and relatively 45 degrees, something like that. So there's your pattern that is left by the teeth of the squirrel. So there you have it, western gray squirrel feeding sign as well as tracks. So I've placed the acorn here that I showed you, and I'll place one of those here so you can look at all the sign together. So this squirrel climbed the tree, gnawed this branch off to drop it down to the ground so it could get the acorns that were attached to the branch and feed on them. And it left some really nice tracks for us. And its friend, the striped skunk, left us a track right in the middle there too. So there you have it, a little bit about the biology of the western gray squirrel.